The Air Venturi Avenge-X, reviewed in full. Coming up. AEAC is made possible by Air Venturi, Hawksport Optics, Diana Airguns, FX Airguns, Saber Tactical, Air Arms, Leapers and UTG Pro, Zan Projectiles, Air Marksman, and Predator JSB Match Diablo. And you guys know the best way to thank them. Guys, I won't take up your time echoing what you can read about the Avenge-X on the interweb. Instead, I'll share with you how to change calibers, how to swap from cylinder to bottle, how to clean the barrel, and how to install the Saber Tactical chassis. We'll do a sound test with and without 2 different brands of Moderator, a trigger test and a refill, and I'll review 2 different types of pellets at 50 yards, and 4 different slugs at 100. And I'll share with you the 4 custom tunes to get you through the video. If you want to learn how to tune the Avenge-X for yourself, check out my ultimate airgun tuning guide for it. In that video, we pushed the 25 caliber Avenge-X to 120 yards, sharing the story of 8 custom tunes across 4 types of pellet and 2 types of slug. And we'll teach you exactly how to do it all on your own and with great success. Out of the box, the 22 cal will push an 18 grain pellet to around 900 feet per second, which is just fine for your short game. But for the very best accuracy at 50 and 100 yards, 870 is going to be your number. Yeah, sure, you'll pick up a bit of drift, but what you'll gain in repeatable placement will be well worth it. Here's 10 at 100 yards, and a light left to right wind. And 5 more at 50, in no wind. Ooh. In case you didn't know, JSB makes Air Arms pellets for them, and they're supposed to be the exact same thing. And my Avenge-X really liked them, more so than it did the JSBs. By the way, for a tour of the JSB manufacturing facility in the Czech Republic, click here. Here's the tune, guys. Regulator set to 131 bar, transfer port adjuster set to high, hammer spring tension adjuster set to 1 turn clockwise from a full left stop, plus 1 tiny little clockwise bump. Average velocity 870 feet per second, extreme spread 16, standard deviation 4.54. 103 good usable shots at 30.5 foot-pounds of energy, all out of the little 210cc alloy cylinder. So yeah, the Avenge-X is fully modular, meaning that you can swap calibers, air bottles, and stocks pretty easily. And it's fully tunable for most any ammo, weather conditions, or configuration. Guys, barrel kits for the Avenge-X are just 70 bucks, giving you easy access to the calibers that you don't currently own. In the gun now is a 22 caliber barrel, and down here in front of me, I have a 25 cal Air Venturi barrel kit. Now included in the kit is a new 25 cal magazine, a 25 caliber specific bolt probe, and of course, an all new barrel and shroud. Now swapping them out is super easy to do. All you got to do is remove your scope to get access to the top of the receiver. You'll need a 2.5 millimeter Allen to remove the 2 locking screws that hold the whole system in place. And you'll also need a 1/16 inch Allen to remove the bolt probe, and I'll show you that in a minute. So once you get those removed, gently just slide the barrel out. Sometimes it helps to rock it back and forth just a little bit as you do so. And here it comes. Now you'll want to give the barrel support in this area as you move it through the barrel band, and sometimes it helps to take a cloth that's got a little bit of oil on it and run it up and down the shroud to help things move through this barrel band easy. All right, and out it comes. So the next step, we've got to remove the 22 caliber bolt probe. And the way we do that is we take a 1/16 inch Allen SAE, and we're going to look for a little porthole drilled through the bolt probe, and we're going to rotate this counterclockwise. There's a spring washer in here that I'll show you in a minute that kind of holds everything in place. Now once you get it started, you can take this out counterclockwise just with your fingers. Mine's got a little bit of oil on it, so it's slippery. Okay, out it comes. And in here you'll see the little spring washer. There it goes. It just flew right on out. And if I tip the gun forward, the bolt probe's going to come right out the front of the breech here. And I missed, but there it is. Okay, now we're going to take our new one. We're going to find our spring washer now, and the spring washer is kind of like a contact lens for your eyeball. It's shaped about like so, and you want that curve to point towards the back of the gun, so as we screw the bolt probe in and apply pressure, it flattens that curve out and the washer holds it in place. So what I like to do is just take the bolt probe, preferably not backwards, slide it in until it kind of hits my finger there. Then I'll take the washer, take my washer and gently drape it over the threads of the bolt probe. Good. Kind of position it and start rotating it clockwise. The threads will catch. You want to gently just move it into place or screw it into place until it seats. And once you get it finger tight, take your 1/16 inch SAE Allen, and we're going to tighten this probe by rotating it clockwise. Now you don't want to be choked way up here on the Allen once things start to tighten, otherwise you're just going to bend it. So I like to get down here nice and close and just get it pretty snug. You don't got to go too crazy with this. You know, when I did the tuning guide video on this for you a couple of months back, I ran thousands and thousands of rounds through these guns and never had a problem with that backing out. So next, we will take our new 25 caliber barrel. Yep, that's definitely the 25 cal. And what you'll see is you'll see the transfer port on one end here. Now the transfer port goes down. And on top of the barrel here, you'll see two little indentations. And those are for those little locking screws. These guys. So we want to index this as such. Gently work it back into place here to where that transfer port is angled downwards. And those two little indentations to capture the locking screws are pointed upwards. Gently move this into place. And when you get it into place, it won't rock too much one way or the other. Good deal. Now we'll reinstall our little locking screws. You don't want to go too crazy tightening this because you don't want to put too much pressure on the top of that barrel. The walls of them really aren't that thick and you don't want to go deforming it. All right, that's literally all there is to it, guys. Gonna go ahead and run a couple of cycles here just to make sure everything's lined up and looks good. And yeah, that's it. Swapping out the barrel on the Air Venturi Avenge-X. That easy. For supporting equipment today, I am running the Leapers UTG Pro, 30mm medium profile aluminum, precision optics interface made in America scope rings. The new Hawk Optics Sidewinder 30SF 4.5 to 14 by 44 rifle scope. And Accutac's BR4 G2 bipod, designed and made in sunny California, USA. JSB's 25.4 grain Monster is the pellet I wanted to make work most out of the Avenge-X. And while results were stellar with it out of the 34 grain 25 cal variant, I struggled to get the 22 cal version to stabilize past 50 yards reliably. With zero wind, I'd get 100-yard groups like these. And 915 to 920 seemed to be the magic number. Then the wind would come up a little bit and they'd destabilize and scatter. After spending weeks and weeks chasing down reliable stability with the 25.4, I gave up and decided that forcing them at 50 was better than trying to fly them to 100, and landed on 930 feet per second, which gave them the reliable and repeatable wind resistance I was looking for at 50, and gave me a medium-range sledgehammer that left the muzzle with 49 foot-pounds of energy and 50 yards away still held on to 36. And that's a lot of precision punch for a 22. Here's the tune, guys. Regulator set to 210 bar. Transfer port adjuster set to high. Hammer springs at 7 turns clockwise from a full left stop. Average velocity 930 feet per second. Extreme spread 10. Standard deviation 2.66 feet per second. 31 good usable shots at 48.8 foot-pounds of energy, all out of the little 210cc alloy cylinder. And in case you want it, here's a 920 tune that should do better at 100 yards for you, so long as there is no wind. Alright guys, the Avenge-X's trigger is dual stage and 3-point adjustable. It's not quite match grade, but if you know where to look and who to follow, you can certainly get it there, and certainly get it good enough to do what I've done out here today at 50 and 100. Now the first stage take-up is smooth and light and quite short, and it does come up against a firm wall, and with just a little bit more pressure and a tad bit of roll, off it goes. Out of the box and without any adjustments at all. 1 pound, 6.6 ounces. Taming 49 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle is easy to do with the DonnyFL Yokozuna. Being segmented, one can control its length, which will be critical to matching your ammo and tune and getting the best accuracy out of it. With the 25.4s running at 930, mine came by way of the configuration you see here, which will most definitely change following your ammo and specific tune. So be sure to experiment. That's why it's got so many segments to play with. They'll never hear it coming, guys. Any wind at all is this pellet and tune's arch nemesis. And without any interfering, it'll do extraordinary things. But as mentioned, you can kind of get away with forcing things at 50. Alright guys, let me show you how to remove the air cylinder and replace it with the carbon fiber bottle. Now the first thing you want to do is to drain all of the air out of the cylinder as well as out of the receiver and plenum. And you will do that by taking a 3mm Allen and turning the bleed screw 1/4 turn counterclockwise. Now once you think you've got the air out of the cylinder, go ahead and dry fire the gun once or twice to purge all of the air out of the plenum. And you'll know when it dumps, 'cause it'll do that. Check your gauges to make sure they're both empty. Okay, now this is really important. Don't forget to retighten the bleed screw, so that when you put your bottle back on, all of the air in here doesn't come rushing out the bleed screw. Okay, next thing you want to do is to get the gun out of whatever chassis or stock you've currently got it in. Losing things all over the place here. Okay. All right, set your chassis or stock aside. Okay, now there's a small retaining screw. It's a 3mm. It's right here, and that's what holds the cylinder in place. Once I remove that screw, I'll be able to just pull the cylinder straight out. Now you won't need this screw for the bottle because the bottle just threads into this air port. Now, of course, you'll want to save this for when you reinstall the cylinder later, if you reinstall the cylinder later. Next, all we've got to do is separate the two by gently pulling them apart. If you've got a barrel band on the gun, for me it's easier to slip this off first. That's all there is to it. Now the carbon fiber bottle just threads right into the port that you pulled the cylinder out of, and you can install and uninstall this bottle full of air. It doesn't matter so long as you've got that bleed screw tightened down. Just going to gently drop it into place to get it past the little O-rings there. And then we'll screw it in clockwise. And once you get close, you'll hear the compressed air in the bottle. Go ahead and charge the plenum and the cylinder. Make sure it's just hand tight. Don't have to do anything crazy here. If you're going to put this back into the OEM stock water synthetic, you'll want to use the barrel band that comes specific to the bottle. Otherwise, just drop it into your chassis. Now on the Saber chassis, I do like to use blue thread locker on the 3 included mounting screws, because if you don't, they'll tend to loosen up on you. The side retaining screws are 3mm. And the one just in front of the trigger is 4mm. Okay, lastly, install the included Saber tactical spacer that covers up the hammer adjustment screw. That too is a 4mm. Okay, we're all done. Bottle on gun and gun in bottle specific Saber tactical chassis. The Impulse Air Model 1350 is another great option for the Avenge-X. It too is modular, giving the operator the flexibility they'll need to get the most out of it. In the configuration you see here is how I got the most out of mine. Regardless of the brand, the moderator question I get asked most is which one and what size. In my experience, you just never know, and it's a game of experimentation. I always just go with the one and the configuration of that one that gives me the best groups for the ammo and tune that I'm currently running. In other words, I put the tune together and then let the gun tell me what it wants. And any fine-tuning I do comes down to those modular segments and or going with a caliber moderator that matches that of the barrel, or plus sizing it up by one. You just never know what the gun will want going in, but you do find out real quick when you start experimenting at 50 and 100. You'll know pretty darn quick if it likes the combination or not, and if you're pleased with the sound. The Impulse Air Model 1350 also does a fine job of swallowing up that 49 foot-pounds. The OEM baffling in the Avenge-X does an adequate job of quieting things down, especially when you're running a mild-mannered 30 foot-pound 18 grain tune, as I am now. If you wish to turn up the horsepower yet keep things moderated, there are aftermarket options available to you, such as this Yokozuna by DonnyFL. And this Model 1350 by Impulse Air. Managing the performance of your Avenge-X in 10 to 15 mile-an-hour winds, while not easy, is possible. To get things right, you gotta get everything to click into place. And most of it revolves around finding a slug that your barrel likes at a speed that it likes. And the rest just comes down to a firm, repeatable hold, proper trigger execution, and perfect follow-through. Get those 5 things right and the performance will be there for you. And it was for me with the FX Hybrid Slugs tuned to run at a tight 970. And what better circumstance to test that than in high winds at 100 yards. And if you haven't already, check out my Ultimate Tuning Guide for All Airguns Part 2, hosted with the Avenge-X 25 cal. It'll teach you everything you need to know, as well as get you familiar with the 25, which coincidentally is even better than the 22, and would be my pick. I'll link it in the description for you guys down below. Try to think of your gun's regulator as its master flow control into the system. It is the air's first stop on the way out of the bottle. The more you open it up or turn it up, the more overall flow potential you're charging the gun with. But that's also more air that your downstream hammer and valve have to contend with. Now, it's really not as bad as all that. They're perfectly equipped to do so. But there's a balancing act that needs to take place there between reg, hammer, and valve that I want you to put in the back of your mind and start thinking about. We'll come back to that. Okay. Here's the tune, guys. Regulator set to 210 bar. Transfer port adjuster set to high. Hammer springs 8 turns clockwise from a full left stop, plus 2 little clockwise bumps. Average velocity 947 feet per second. Extreme spread 8. Standard deviation 2.49 feet per second. 27 good usable shots at 51 foot-pounds of energy. All out of the little 210cc alloy cylinder. So forever now as an air gunner, I've used the Patchworm by 2020 Concepts to clean my air gun barrels. Frankly, over the years, I haven't found anything that cleans as well. And at just 10 to 15 bucks a kit, I also feel like it's very reasonably priced. Now, what makes the Patchworm so special is that it includes these caliber-specific collars that slip over your weed eater string that press that cleaning patch very tightly up against the walls of the barrel as you pull your patch through. And that scrubbing action really just does a very stellar job, yet gentle job at getting that lead and graphite out of your air gun barrels. Very simply, the way we're going to clean the barrel is first you have to remove the shroud so you can get access to it. And what I like to do is get a little bit of ballistol, just a little bit, on a microfiber towel and just rub that over the barrel shroud, because there's an O-ring inside this barrel band. And as I unscrew this by turning it counterclockwise, and eventually I'm going to pull it out, I want to make sure that this maintenance action I'm performing remains gentle on the O-ring that's centered in this barrel band, so that that lasts and keeps my shroud in place. It's unthreading right here at the receiver, and there's quite a few of them, so this is going to take you just a sec. All right, now once you get to the end here, the shroud's going to free up. You'll see that it's popped off. Now I want to support this and keep this as parallel to the air cylinder of the gun as I can, and just gently slide it out. And you can see the little bit of lube I've put on that shroud is making that super easy. You've got another little stabilizer here you got to get over. Also with two more O-rings, and it just comes right off like that. And as you can see, now we've got access to our barrel for cleaning. So what we need to do is we need to open up the bolt, engage the safety, like to test it to make sure that we're good there. And now we can start pulling our patches through. So this here is what the Patchworm weed eater string looks like. It's basically just a green cord. Again, I've had this one forever. I'm kind of amazed that I haven't been able to break it in all these years, but I haven't. And it's got a little stop collar, and then this little white collar you see here is specific to the 22. And what you'll notice is that when I slide this patch down this weed eater string, and they're sharpened at one end so you can kind of puncture it. All right, it'll stop on that caliber specific collar. And now as I pull this through, that's going to be sized perfectly for a 22 cal, and it's going to get a really good scrub. So you want to take a little bit of ballistol, and just kind of lightly mist around your patch. You don't want to really soak this, because then as you pull it through and it wrings itself out, all that extra oil is going to fall down into your transfer port. That's not going to hurt anything. When you go to shoot the gun, that's all going to sneeze out the gun and come out the barrel, but it's also going to line your barrel with oil, and that's going to take you a while to shoot that oil out, and it may be a little bit before your accuracy comes back. And I'm going to try to line this collar up so that it gets a little bit of a start into the breech there. And then I'm going to get a really good grip on this weed eater string and just very gently pull the patch through the barrel. And what you'll find with this Patchworm is it's not going to take a whole heck of a lot of them to get any lead fouling. And as you can see, there's a little bit on here on this patch out of your barrel. I like to reuse patches, so I'll go ahead and turn that patch over, or inside out, use the other side. Repeat the process. Get lined up here before you pull. And you want to pull slowly to give that mechanical action time to work. And on my end, that second pull felt a lot slicker than the first. I'm still getting a little bit of lead, but a lot less. So I'll go ahead and grab a second patch. Line everything up. Give it a slow, gentle pull. All right, you can see we're already getting quite a bit cleaner. I'm still pulling a little bit of lead, so I'll reverse this one. just like I did the first. And keep on going. All right, I'm lead free now, so I want to start pulling dry patches through next to clean the oil off of the walls of the barrel. But before I like to do that, as I mentioned, sometimes when that patch wrings out, you'll get some oil that kind of falls down into the transfer port. So at this point, I like to go ahead and dry fire, and you'll see all that oil atomize and come out the muzzle here. Do it one more time. All right. Safety on. Usually 2's good to cough it all up. Now I'll pull a couple of dry patches through. Now if you're going to put the gun up to store it, just leave the barrel wet inside. It's good for it, especially here in muggy Florida. But if you want to, if you're going to go shoot and start shooting for groups and you want the accuracy to be there, you want to start with a dry barrel. All right, that's pretty good. 2 patches, so I don't go crazy with getting them dry. In my experience, most barrels just take 5 or 10 or even 15 shots to season. And what that seasoning is it's kind of laying down a light coat of graphite, maybe a little bit of lead in the barrel to fill in those imperfections. It gets out any residual oil in the barrel, and then you'll start seeing those pellets land in the same hole down range. So that's really all there is to it. Now when you're done, I like to put just a little bit of oil on these O-rings here, because I want to keep those intact as well. Wipe the shroud down one more time to kind of coat it lightly. That way everything goes back together nice and easy. Kind of rotate and slide. And once you get back up against the threads here, and if you want, you can put a little drop of oil on there. That doesn't hurt anything. Just keeps things nice and lubed and happy for when you want to take it apart again. And yeah, that's it. Super easy. Patchworm by 2020 Concepts. Totally the way to go, guys. The made in Slovenia Zan Projectile's 28 grain slug is another good one for a full burn max power tune out of the Avenge-X 22 cal. And they did great out of the 25 cal as well. Even better, actually. And in case you didn't know it, the owner-inventor, actually pronounced Jean as in Jean Sudet, has been busy developing a line of pellets for air guns too. The 30 cal is available now and more are on the way, so keep an eye out for that. Speaking of 30 caliber and on the way, the FX King 30 cal with 600mm pellet and slug barrels is on the way to me for review. Zan 33, 120 yards. I was at the Bucks-Panthers game a few weeks back and kind of had an oh doo-doo moment realizing how far 120 yards really is, especially when compared to the size of this. It is truly remarkable how far air guns have come in the last 10 years, and the Air Venturi Avenge-X is a shining example. Speaking of those, my time with the new Hawk Sidewinder has been a good one. Especially notable is how well it got along with my trigger cam scope cam. Not to mention its excellence everywhere. Fit and finish, feel, and performance have been awesome, and turret tracking has been dead on, as has been my side focus to parallax yardage. Throw in a good reticle and break glass and I'm happy as a clam. Do love me this gun in 25. So what's it like to shoot the Avenge-X? Short answer, surprisingly nice, especially for the money. And a definite step up from guns costing a little more. Benjamin Hudson and Numerex come to mind. The Avenge-X is simply a nicer shoot, but doesn't always feel as robustly built as the competition. But I do feel like it outperforms them, and in a lot of ways is more refined and more useful. And it gets huge points for its flexible modularity and its aftermarket support. When tuned right, the Avenge-X offers a clean, snappy shot cycle that's pleasant to experience. Get it wrong though, and it can feel flubby and inefficient. But not so with this tune. Cocking at the lower hammer spring tension, say settings 0 through 4, feels slick and refined. But only after adding my own Honda Molly paste in after about a 500 shot break-in. Before that, the cycle felt pretty dry and rough. Once you get up to turns 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the hammer spring, cocking gets pretty heavy. And any roughness can get grindy feeling. But again, some Molly paste and a little synthetic gun oil applied here fixed that for me. And transformed the experience. Those tailwinds can make things tough to figure out sometimes, but you guys get the idea. The Zans are wicked. Great, and the problem I had with it is if it were installed and I were to bump the barrel, it's got enough tension to put the barrel off center, whichever way you bump it, changing your... Whether you're refilling the Avenge-X's 210cc alloy cylinder or its 400cc carbon fiber bottle, recharging goes the same. First thing you do is remove the dust cover. Then hook up your Foster Quick Connect and slowly fill to no more than 300 bar. Now the fill equipment I'm using today is the Air Venturi bottle, the Saber Tactical tank tote, and the Saber Tactical valve. When you're done, bleed the air between your fill source and the gun. Remove your fill whip and replace the dust cover. That's all there is to it. Nick Nielsen makes some of the best slugs out there. His brand is called Nielsen Specialty Ammo, and they're made right here in the USA. Fortunately for me, his 23 grain took a liking to the 22 barrel and my Max Power Tune. And as good as they are here, once again, they were even better out of the 25 cal. So NSA is definitely a brand you're going to want to look at if you own an Avenge-X. And here's a peek of the 25 cal shooting the 33.5 grain, where it put 4 out of 5 into a half-inch hole at 120 yards. Woo! Damn headwinds. Now back to my feelings on the X. The 25 cal was definitely a better gun for me than was the 22. That's not to say that the 22 is bad or didn't perform. It did. It was just harder to get that performance out of it, and took all my knowledge, wisdom, and skill to do it. Whereas with the 25 cal, performance just came easier. The barrel was much less fussy. It didn't hold on to lead and seemingly never fouled up. Whereas the opposite was true for my 22 cal. I'm guessing this has to do with barrel lottery, as owners' reports on both calibers are excellent. But it is what it is, and that was my experience with them, so I'm sharing. Take it for what it's worth. If you're coming from an Avenger and are thinking about an Avenge-X, do it. As much as I like my Avenger, I like my X better. In summary, it's just everything you wanted to make better about the Avenger and more. It's totally worth the little extra money.
Number 5 again.
Dropping your Avenge-X into a Saber Chassis is a piece of cake, guys. The first thing you'll want to do is to remove the OEM stock from the gun, and you'll need a 3mm and a 4mm Allen to do so. The 2 screws you're going to remove is one in the pick rail and one just behind the trigger here. Okay, once you get them out, gently pry the stock away from the gun. All right, and set that aside. Next, you want to remove the barrel band from the gun, and all you got to do that is slide it up and off the gun, but before you do that, remove the 2 end caps. Take some care up here at the top to protect the 2 O-rings that are inside the barrel band. Come on, baby. There it goes. All right. Then all you got to do is take your Avenge-X and drop it into the Saber Chassis. Okay, the chassis mounts to the gun with just 3 screws. 2 in the sides, 1 on each side. Those are 3mm, and then 1 right in front of the trigger here. That's a 4mm. Now on these screws, it's important to use a little bit of blue thread locker because mine did back out on me when I was filming for the 18 grain tune. Okay, and the last one, the 4mm, drops just in front of the trigger. All right, now included with your Saber chassis is a spacer to cover up the hammer spring tension adjuster. Just drop that in place. That's also a 4mm. Kind of completes the look of the gun and stiffens everything up real nice, I'm sure. Now the barrel band, it's my recommendation to you guys that you leave this off the gun in this configuration. I shot without it. Accuracy was great. And the problem I had with it is if it were installed and I were to bump the barrel, it's got enough tension to hold the barrel off center, whichever way you bump it, changing your point of impact. Whereas if you just discard it completely, the barrel's got plenty of rigidity built in to where if you do bump it or knock it, it'll kind of come right back to center and your point of impact won't wander on you. But, oh, don't forget to replace your end caps before you go shooting. That's all there is to it, guys. Saber Tactical Chassis for the Avenge-X. Super cool. JSB makes a slug called the Knockout. In 22 cal it comes in two sizes, 216 and 217, both of which weigh 25.39 grains. The 216 size is the one my barrel clearly liked best, but you kind of need to own both because it's an air gun and you just never know. Now the Avenge-X comes with two magazines, a standard capacity and a high capacity. My standard capacity mag was not great. Its holes weren't drilled of an even diameter, allowing some pellets to drop into place and others to ride up high on their skirts. And this caused problems for me with repeatable accuracy. So admittedly, I never used them, except for the ones that came with my 25 cal. In that caliber, the standard capacity magazine was perfect, and it was all I used. One more thing on the high capacity magazine for the 22. It fed all my slugs without a hitch, except for a few times with the knockouts it did this. I can't explain why, and it was rare, but I did want to share. Hey, that rhymes. You can hear that big gust of wind hit my microphones and see it shake my chronograph. In that order, moving from the 100-yard target down to me. Really blowing that shot 5 off target. That's air gunning, guys. Well, that is all for today, guys. Special thanks to Air Venturi, Hawksport Optics, Leapers and UTG Pro, Saber Tactical, AccuTac, Impulse Air, and DonnyFL for getting all of this into my hands to review for you. You guys know the best way to thank them for that one. Now from here, y'all want to head on over to the Airgun Nation forum so that you can participate in the discussion thread on the Avenge-X. I'll leave you a link on how to get there in the description down below. So with that, I'm Steve Shalley. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great week, everyone. This one just fell out of the tree and stung me in the neck.